Hey guys, we are back with yet another interesting video. Today, we will make sure that you have some fun and learn something new. As always, all the videos and playlists can be found on our YouTube channel. We'll be uploading multiple videos every week, so smash the like button, subscribe to our channel and keep commenting your thoughts down below. In today's video, we'll be discussing in detail about the text manipulation functions. So the text manipulation functions like concatenation, trimming, finding the length, converting any value into uppercase, lowercase, proper case, and so on. So these functions are highly useful in data cleaning purposes. Let's say you are doing a data science project or any analytics project in Excel, and you want to maintain data consistencies. So this can be achieved through all the text manipulation functions that we'll be discussing today. Without any further ado, let's get started. So the first set of text manipulation functions we'll be studying today are the left, right, and mid functions. So the left function basically returns the leftmost characters from a text value. For example, in the name Rahul, if we find out the three leftmost characters, it would be R, A, and H. The right function is exactly the opposite to the left function, where it returns the rightmost characters from a text value. Example, in the name Rahul, if we want to find out the three rightmost characters, that would be H, U, and L. The mid function is kind of a combination of the left and right function, where it returns a specific number of characters from a text string, but not starting from the left position or the right position, but starting from a certain position that we enter in the argument. Correct? So in the name Rahul, if we say that we start from the position 2, so it would start from A and not R, and we want to find three characters. So it would be A, H, and U. So this is how the mid function works. It does not start from the left or the right. It can start from anywhere we want. And it goes on till the number of characters that we enter in the argument. If we say 3, it would start from the third character, which is H. And it can go on till any number of characters that we desire. Now let us begin by understanding the left, right, and mid functions in Excel and how do we use them. So the first function is the left function. To start by understanding the left function, we enter is equal to left and select any text. So here we'll be selecting the cell B3, and how many characters do we want from this cell? So let's just say that we need 4 characters from the left and press enter. So you see that we have got B, R, A, and U from the left side of this cell. Now similarly we can do the same for the right function. The right function will select the same cell, the cell B3, and let's select the number of characters as 5, so that it returns 5 characters from the right. Press enter, and you see that it has returned Aris as a part of the word Harris. So basically the left and right functions are opposite to each other, and the left function returns the left characters from a string, while the right function returns the characters from the right, and the counting begins from the right. Now let's see the mid function is equals to mid. So let's select again the same text for better understanding. Now the mid function is pretty simple. We need to find a substring which starts from a certain range and ends with a certain range. So let's say we want to start finding a substring from the character 5th, and we want to go till 9th. Okay, let's press enter. So you see that it has given a certain amount of output, and it starts with N. Correct? So let's start counting from B till N. What's the number of characters? So B, R, A, U, N. That's the so N is the character 5 here. right? And in the formula we said that we need a total of 9 characters, correct? So if you see that N, D, comma, so these are 3, a space is 4, M is 5, R is 6, O is 7, again a space, that's 8, and finally a capital O that sums up to 9 characters. So the mid function is pretty simple. It says that let's start from a certain range, let's start from a character. So that character is character number 5, which is N in this particular value. And for how many characters do you want to go on? So let's say I want to go on for 9 characters. So it will start from the character 5th, the 5th character of the substring, and it will go till the 9th, right? It will go till 9 characters. And this is how the left, right, and mid functions work in Excel. Now comes the second set of text manipulation functions. So these are the find, replace, and substitute functions. The find function is pretty basic, where it finds one substring in another string, and in Excel it is usually case sensitive. So for example, in the sentence Sachin hit a 6, we can find out the substring 6 in the string Sachin hit a 6. So similarly, the replace function is an addition to the find function, where it can replace characters. So first step would be definitely finding out the characters which are present in a sentence, and then replacing those characters with the desired characters that we want. So for example, we can say that in the sentence Sachin hit a 6, we can replace the word 6 with a 4, and the sentence will come out as Sachin hit a 4. So this is how the replace function works. The substitute function is actually an easier version of the replace function, and we'll be seeing that in detail while we'll be working on the Excel. But the substitute function works exactly like the replace function, but it is easier to use in Excel, where we can replace the old text in a string with some new text. Again, the same example occurs where we say that Sachin hit a 6 can be replaced by Sachin hit a 4. Let us now understand how do we use the find, replace, and substitute functions in Excel. Although these functions are very rarely used in text manipulation, but still, let's have a look to understand where we can use it. What is the exact use case where we want to use it? So let's start with the find function, and enter is equals to find. The parameter says that we need to find the text. So what text do we want to find? So let's say I want to find Mr. the salutation, correct? I want to find this. Where do I want to find this? So I want to find this in this particular cell B3, which has Mr. salutation in it, right? After that, the option of start num, which is an optional parameter, so let's ignore this. So how do we identify that it is an optional parameter? Wherever a parameter is covered in square brackets, it means that it is an optional parameter. So let's just say that we want to find Mr. salutation in the cell B3 and press enter. So this returns the character position 9, right? So which says that at the 9th position, BRA, which is 3, UND, that's 6, so comma is 7, a space is 8, and M is 9. So at the 9th position of this substring, right, we find that the salutation Mr. is starting. So it returns the first character of the substring. Again, so let's do it for some other cell. Is equals to find. What do we want to find? We want to find Mrs. Where do we want to find this? We can find this in B4, and we can press enter. So the character number is 10, right? So CUMI, that's 4, NGS, that's 7, comma is 8, a space is 9, and then M starts at 10th position. So it returns the position number 10 where the substring Mrs. has started. So this is how the find function works. Now let's begin by understanding the replace function. So the replace function is an addition to the find function where we find a particular substring and we want to replace that substring with a new value, right? So let's start by entering replace. What is the old text? So let's say that the old text is this, the cell B4, the start num. So the start num is the position where you want to start replacing. So the start num is basically the output of the find function, right? So let's say our objective is to replace the substring Mrs., the salutation Mrs. by Mr. We want to replace this. Now we know that the substring Mrs. has started at position 10, right? And the number of characters in Mrs. is 4. And what is the new text that you want to replace it with? So we want to replace Mrs. with Mr. Now you see that the output has turned from Mrs., which is here, to Mr., which is here, right? So this is how the replace function works. Now the substitute function. The substitute function is a very easy version of the replace function. Why is it an easy version? Because in the replace function we had to enter the starting position, which was the output of the find function. We had to enter the position of the character where the old text had started. For example, if we want to replace Mrs., we cannot enter Mrs. We had to enter the position of the character M, right? But substitute position is pretty easy. We do not have to enter any character positions. All we need to do is take the old text. So for example, we need to replace Mr. of this value by Mrs. So for Mr. Brown Owen Harris, we need to make it Mrs. Brown Owen Harris, right? So the old text will be Mr. since we need to replace Mr. What is the new text? The new text will now become Mrs. and that's it. Just press enter. So you see that this is more easy than the replace function because we are not using any character positions and we are not using any details of the find function, the output of the find function. It's pretty simple. Just enter the old text Mr., enter the new text Mrs. Where do you want to replace it? We want to replace it in cell B3 and you're good to go. That's it. So this is how the find, replace and substitute functions help in understanding where is the substring in a main string, how can we replace those substrings with a new substring in easy and intuitive fashion. The len function. So the len function basically returns the number of characters in a string. For example, in the name Rahul, the len function would return the number of characters as 5 because it has R, A, H, U and L as the 5 characters. Next comes the text function. So the text function basically formats a number and converts it into any text value. For example, in Excel, we see that the number 22 is a numeric value, but we want to convert it into a text value. This can be done using the text function. The value function is exactly the opposite, where the value 22 is in a text format, but we want to convert it into a numeric format. So this can be done using the value function. The trim function is pretty useful in data cleaning purposes, where if there are any additional spaces to the left or to the right of any text, the trim function will remove all those additional spaces from the left and right sides. Let's see how the len function works in Excel. So the len function basically returns the number of characters which are present in a cell value. Now, if you want to find the length of a cell, let's say B4, C4, and press enter. So you see that the number of characters which are present in the cell C4 is 6, which is pretty obvious because the number of characters in the word female is 6. Now let's do an interesting thing. Let's enter length again, and we want to find the length of value C3. Press enter. The obvious answer to the length of the value C3 was actually 4, because the number of characters in the word male is 4, but we see that the number of characters or the length is showing up as 10. Why is this happening? Let's click on the cell C3 and see the formula bar. If we select the value in the formula bar, we can see that there are some additional spaces to the right of the word male. And this is why these spaces are also counted in the length function. So anytime spaces to the left or to the right or in between the words, in between the characters, are also counted as characters, and they will be added to the length. So here we can use the trim function to remove additional spaces from the left and right, which we'll be discussing in a few moments from now. For now, we can again find the length of any other cell. Let's say we find the length of the cell which is C8. Now here again the obvious answer should be 4, and we find it as 4. And hence we can say that there are no additional spaces in this particular cell. But there are additional spaces to the right in cell C3. Now let's start understanding the text function. So the text function basically converts a numeric value to a text value. A numeric value can be in the format like in the age column, where the value 22, 26, 35, 35, 54 are all numeric values because they are aligned to the right. In Excel, by default, numeric values are aligned to the right, while text values are aligned to the left. For example, all these are text values and they are aligned to the left by default. We have not done any sort of alignment here. Also, in the sex column here, for the male and female categories, they are aligned to the left. Surprisingly, in the age column, the value 38, which should be a numeric value, but it is aligned to the left. Hence, we can say that the format of this particular cell is a textual value. Let's do one thing. We'll confirm this. We'll go to the Home tab and see the format. You see that it is a textual format. You can see this in the Home tab. So let's say we want to convert any of the numeric values to a textual value, right? So for that, we enter text and we select any value. Let's say the age 22. Format text. So the format text is basically a very simple argument where we need to convert, where we want to find a format of the text. So let's enter hash as the parameter and press enter. So you see that the value has now shifted to the left. Initially here in the cell D3, it was to the right, which indicated a numeric value, but in this particular output, it has now pushed to the left, which indicates a textual value. We can do exactly the opposite using the value function, where we can convert a textual value to a numeric value. So we already have a textual value here, which is the age 38, and since this is a textual value and we want to convert it into a numeric value, it should align from the left, which is here in the cell D4, to the right here in the output. So the value 38 now has aligned to the right, which indicates that it is now converted into a numeric format. Now the most important trim function. So in the length function, we discussed that for the value C3, for the cell C3, where the length of characters should have been 4, but it is showing it up as 10, right? Which indicated that there are additional spaces either to the left or to the right, which we do not want. And this is an important step in data cleaning, correct? We do not want any additional spaces either to the left or to the right, because it may create inconsistencies in the data. So to remove that, what we can do is we can use the trim function. And to use the trim function, we just enter is equals to trim and select the cell. We'll be selecting the cell C3 because this has additional spaces to the right. And after selecting the cell C3 and pressing enter, we see that the value is now completely trimmed. How do we confirm this? We can confirm this by again checking the length of the cell. Now instead of checking the length of cell C3, we'll be checking the length of this particular output, which is cell H14, and press enter. Now interestingly, the output is 4, which means that the trim function has worked. It has removed all the additional spaces and only retained the 4 important characters of the word male. Now we'll be talking about another set of text manipulation functions, which are the upper, lower, and proper functions. The upper function in Excel converts the text to uppercase format, that is basically the capitalized format. The lower function is exactly the opposite of the upper function, and it converts the text to the lowercase format. The proper function is a nice function in Excel which capitalizes the first letter of every word in a text value. The upper, lower, and proper functions. Let's see how we can use these in Excel. Although again, these functions may not be very useful in data cleaning, like the left, right, mid functions, or the substitute functions, or finding the length of a particular cell, or trimming because of additional spaces and not have inconsistencies. Using the upper, lower, and proper functions is just for simple purposes, like let's say that this gender in this particular case, we want to convert it into a proper into a proper case and not have all in the lower characters, or convert the lower characters into upper characters. So how do we do this? What we can do is to convert a particular value into the uppercase, which is capitalized letters, we press upper and select the text. We need to select a particular value. Let's select cell C4. So it has converted all the characters into capitalized format. But here initially it was all in lower cases. Correct? Now let's say we want to convert all the characters into lower cases. So what we can do is select lower and we select any text. Let's say we select this value, which is Mr. Timothy J. McCarthy. This is the name of a person, and we want to convert this cell into lowercase. Although this may not be very useful, because we usually prefer having names in proper cases or at least upper cases. We never use them in lower cases, but for the sake of demonstration, we are using this value, the name value. Here the most important is the proper function, which helps in beautifying the data and maintain consistencies. So proper function is basically a function which capitalizes only the first letter of every word. Like for example, you see that in the name column here, all the words in the name of Mr. Owen Harris Brown is capitalized. Correct? So this is already in the proper case, but none of the values in the columns sex are in proper case. So let's convert them into proper case by entering is equals to proper and select a particular value. We can select cell C7 for example, and press enter. So we see that the value male, which was initially in lowercase letters, now has converted into proper case letters, which means that only the first letter of the word is now converted into a capitalized format. Rest all are lower cases. Again, these functions are not highly used in data cleaning, but still for any sort of removing data inconsistencies or beautifying the data, these functions may prove useful for other text manipulation purposes. The final set of functions that we'll be discussing today are the repeat and concatenate functions. So the repeat function just repeats a text n number of times. Let's say the word Rahul has to be repeated 5 times, so the repeat function can do just that. While the concatenate function can join multiple text items into one text item together. For example, there are 3 columns with the values of name, gender, and age. So the concatenate function can combine all the values in these 3 cells of name, gender, and age into one single string. And this is how the concatenate function can work. Let's jump to the final set of functions, which is the repeat and concatenate functions. So these functions are highly used in the data cleaning purposes, and for any sort of text manipulation where we want to repeat a particular substring or concatenate 2 different substrings, these functions will be highly used. So let's start by understanding the repeat function. So the repeat function is basically repeating a particular substring multiple number of times. So let's say we want to repeat the value female, which is present in the cell C4 3 number of times. So the word female will now be repeated 3 number of times, which is pretty self-intuitive and self-understanding. Now let's say we want to do it for some other cell. We want to do it for the cell C3, which had additional spaces to the right. Now the repeat function will also include additional spaces to the right of every copy. So since we are creating 3 copies, it should have additional spaces to the right of all the copies. Again, which is a true case. For every copy, there are additional spaces to the right. And this is how the repeat function works. The concatenate function is really useful. We can concatenate any number of strings together, and let's say we want to concatenate information such as let's say female, right? And we also write something like an arrow which indicates some information, and then after that we want to concatenate it with the age and press enter. So you see that the concatenate function is pretty nice and very useful. It concatenates values and also can add multiple values. Here we added female and gave it a nice arrow, and finally added the age 38. We can also do a better version of it by writing is equals to concat, and let's say we can write the age of comma. What's the text do? So we want to find that the age of Mr. James Moran is what? Let's say 35, since we do not have any value next to Mr. James Moran. So this is a very nice use case of the concat function, where we are concatenating our own entered strings. We are taking values from the data here and also entering the age and gender etc. So the age of Mr. Moran James is, for example, let's say 35. And so this is how the concatenation function works in Excel, which is really useful when we want to undergo some data cleaning prospects.
I hope you liked watching this video. Please hit the like button. Do not forget to share and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.